Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about 3 different build orders that you can use in your games. We're going to talk about the standard Byzantine build, which is the Winery build we all know and love because it's actually so good. We still use it in the tournament games to this day, even though it's not super updated with the Pro Scout meta. Speaking of Pro Scout, we're going to talk about a Pro Scout build for Byzantines, and we're going to talk about a Gulp build. And I'll try to bring as many real game examples as I can. So we're going to take a look at Gulp, Winery, and Pro Scouts. Let's get to it. The first build we're going to take a look at is going to be the Winery build. And the Winery build doesn't really fit that well into the current meta, but it still is just so strong inherently, and it has some potential to countering Pro Scouts, although not fully by taking them yourselves. So you don't really want to play with deer when you do this build because you're relying on oil. But instead, what you want to do is you want to use those early units, your javelins, your longbows, if you're going for that instead. Though I do advise going javelins in most scenarios. And your Limitonade to then counter the scouts going for the deers and then raid your opponent as they're going for Castle Age, potentially doing a lot of damage. I'm going to show you how you do that here in King of the Hill. King of the Hill, a little bit different map with further away woodlines, so some of the numbers might be a little bit odd. Although, let's take a look at it. So what you want to try to do is you want to open up with 6 on food, then you want one of those villas to build a cistern and a house. Then you want to go ahead and put 7 on food and then 3 on gold. And you can, of course, find these build orders in the description below. And that's for every single build order I've put out. They're all on this website called AoE4 Guides. So you can find those there and pace along if you want to. All right, so open up with a 7-3 split. 7-3 split gives you a nice 212 timing. You can H up sometimes even at 208, depending on how your construction went with the cisterns and stuff. So it depends on how much uptime you have on your villagers. Then just send your scout out aggressive, try to find sheep, track your opponent's scout, and then go in the opposite direction of where they went. Then you can usually get half the map's sheep. So here we have 7 on food, 3 on gold. We have our cistern covering the wood, the gold, and the berries for the oil, and the sheep as well. So this is a really good cistern, but if you do not get the cistern in a good spot to cover all the resources, don't worry about it. It doesn't really matter too much in the early game when you don't have that many villas. It matters a lot more in the feudal age. So when the second cistern is down, you should have covered most of your resources. So that's early feudal. Build your second cistern, cover the rest of the resources you do not have covered with your initial one. Then take 5 villagers, go out and build the Grand Winery. I do a little bit of mistake here, pulling out a little bit too early. So if you also do that, don't worry too much. The last thing you want to do is you want to skip on villager production. Don't do that. Just go ahead, gather it so that you're sure that you have your villager production and then build your winery. So it's okay to have a bit of delay. Don't worry too much. Although you want to try to minimize that, so make sure that you have enough for the food for the villagers. All right. Then after that, what you want to do is you want to do a 3 on gold split. You want 4 on food, so you have constant villager production. 5 on the winery, and the reason we're going for 5 is because we want to get started on the oil a little bit quicker, and then you want to go on wood. So go on wood until you have about 9 on wood, so you can make constant farms and get your buildings. All right, so scout goes out. Now we want to scout our opponent. We want to figure out what they're going to do. We are on King of the Hill, and Roos is exceptionally good here because of the way that you can have the high trade house in one corner here and generate an absurd amount of resources. So what you can do is a little bit cheeky. If you do find a sheep like this, you can actually kill the sheep in the corner here, and then the sheep will deny that perfect placement of the high trade house. So you can experiment with that if you want to. All right, back to the build. You're going to be queuing up wheelbarrow. You're going to take and queue up double broadaxe, and you can do that pretty much instantly when you enter the feudal age. Then build a cistern. Get the second one. Here I'm just building it further out, so I can have more buildings over here. If I want to build a tower, I can activate the defenses if I'm going to be raided a lot. And then I'm going to go ahead and just gather wood until I have 9 on wood. Other than that, I have 9 on food. The 9th food villager right now is building the aqueduct. Alright, so wheelbarrow, double broadaxe, you got your second cistern coming in, your 3 in gold. You can choose to get the house upgrade, but I don't think it's really that necessary. It's quite expensive getting 120 resources for a little bit of extra vision. Just use your scout proactively, figure out where your opponent's going. Right now he's showing himself quite simply that he wants to go ahead and do some pro scouting. We're building some spearmen now. We're getting our mercenary house, and then we're going to go into javelins. I'm also getting forestry, and then I'm going to go into horticulture after. Use your spears to either push deer if they're close. Now these deers are kind of awkwardly placed. If they were like here, I would push them into my winery. But other than that, if you can't, just place your spears out here and start denying the deers from being taken by your opponent. This puts a lot of pressure on your opponent because they now have to make units if they want to take your deer packs. And usually people don't want to do that because they want to have a really fast timing on their castle. And so you can capitalize on that by having extra units that they do not, and then raid with them if they don't make counter units. So that's the way you want to think about pro scouts. In the meantime, you're just building olive groves. At about minute 9, you should have about 10 olive groves. And then you're going to be building more of them if you're going to go into a longer field age. If not, then you can just go for the 10 and then go castle age. So every game is different. Really, this is the opening build, and there's not a lot more to it other than now you're building javelins, and you can already queue your second pack of javelins at 7 minutes-ish, right? You only need 480, so that's pretty much now, 7 to 15. Then just get your javelins out there and start raiding. The whole point of javelins is they're super fast. They do a lot of damage, 8 base damage. So they do quite well against armored units too. And of course, counter range units. And something that Roos really likes to do is do horse archers. So Byzantines, an exceptional counter there. Again, spears are just patrolling here. You can really just leave one spear. That's actually fine. Here, of course, we have a very good opportunity to do some damage. We kill a villager. It's very nice. He tries to wall up early, indicating that he does not want to go for units. And in the meantime, what we're doing is we're adding in a blacksmith. I like to add in a blacksmith about 7:20, 7:30. Between 7 and 8 minutes is really good. And then you can go for ranged attack, ranged armor, depending on how long you want to stay in feudal. If you want to go to castle quicker, you can put more on gold and then just get that going. For now, what we're doing is we're just using our javelins, running around our enemy's base, trying to disrupt them from castle age and potentially killing all the vills that way. Again, he still has deer over here being ferried, so we're also putting our javelins over here to try to deny some of that. In our base, we're getting up to, what is that, 8 olive groves now? And we're using our javelins aggressively. So we have 8 javelins and 7 Limitinae at 8:30 into the game. And we are also macroing towards castle age. So it's pretty simple like that. Here we have a nice catch. Find the high trade house, very exposed. If you have 4 javelins, they'll usually 2-shot vills. So you need about 7 to 8 javelins, depending on upgrades and stuff like that, to 1-shot villagers. So here we get a nice 4 villager kills. Actually go up to 5, so that's 6 in total with the initial one we kill up here by the wood. And so that's a lot of damage. Don't worry too much about losing these. If you can idle out and kill vills like this with just 4 javelins, that's a lot of value already. So 7 villagers now down. Again, now we want to play it a bit more careful because we're going castle and he's going to be producing units. Although he is idled a lot, we know he's going to go into potentially knights, horsemen, and then horse archers. That's the only units that really make sense here, so we play a little bit more to the back. Macro a little bit more into the gold, because now we want to go castle. We're building a tower onto the olive groves, because the worst thing that can happen now is we're going to get raided to oblivion. So get the tower up and running. You can upgrade the tower in the castle age with a mangonel emplacement. I think it's only 225 stone, so it's not too expensive, and it's really, really effective. I, in general, really, really advise Byzantine players who wants to play a little bit more greedy or wants to move out with infantry to have mangonel emplacements set up. They are super strong. Alright, so now we're putting a tower in the middle, and when we get to castle age, what we want to do is we want to macro really heavy on gold. You want to have at least 12 villagers on gold. So just rally onto that or put extra villagers over there. You're going to need upgrades from the blacksmith, the veterancy contract. You're going to need monks. You're going to make Varangian guard, which is 40 gold a piece. So there's a lot of upgrades, including eco upgrades too, that cost gold. So at least 12 on gold. If you want to mass produce Varangian, probably even more. Alright, so the first thing you're going to queue up is monk. And then you can still pressure at this point, because the horse archers don't really counter too much. But again, you want to get your upgrades, of course. Here, we are almost one-shotting the horse archers. So with the spear wall, we don't really take much damage. And we can actually keep him in his base for longer. So this is a really good move. We have more units coming. And we have our veteran contract coming through soon as well. Got our monk out. It's going to go to the middle and instantly cap the site, because what we want to do on King of the Hill is we want to play sacred sites. You might not want to do that in a standard Dry Arabia map, so just start taking relics here. Again, that's the map making the bigger difference. Alright. So now we are thinking about getting Varangian Guard. We're getting a second monk to start taking more relics. We're taking the middle. We're building a tower here. And now we're just scrimming a bit here. We are doing super well with the javelins as they counter most range units with a lot of extra bonus damage. They're doing +4 versus range, so they have 9 base damage. Sorry, 8 base damage, now 10 with the veteran. And then, I don't know if they get more bonus attack. They do, so that's 8 against ranged. So 18 damage baseline. That's so much. And so here we are developing our economy. We're getting the upgrades we need. Now we're getting some Limited upgrades and Varangian God upgrades. We have 14 olive groves, and we're just playing it out like this. Taking some good fights here. Just countering by single targeting the horse archers. They're getting a one shot here. And this is really just how you want to play it. Play really condensed with your units on top of each other. And there's really nothing they can do because you're going to be countering most things with Limited and javelins. Then you can add in crossbows if your opponent's making a lot of man-at-arms. And play it out like that. So that's pretty much it. All right, let's get to the next build. One of the more niche builds for Byzantines is the Gulp build, but the Gulp build nonetheless is really, really strong. You want to use the Gulp build against players that usually fast castle, but also start to do some feudal age harassment. You can do a lot with this build simply because you'll get a lot of Keshiks quite quickly, and so they're super good at raiding. With the cavalry, you can also go into Springles with Gulams at the Castle Age, and the Springles counter the counters to the cavalry you have, which is crossbows and spears. So using Gulams in the Castle Age, which were usually before the Springle update, were pretty much useless because they were basically just men-at-arms. Now you can construct Springles in the field and quickly get a counter to their defensive force. So not only do you have the healing, you have Cataphracts and Keshiks healing, and a lot of base damage on those units and a lot of health. And then you also have the Springles for the Castle Age. Let's take a look at it. This is a game from Ladder again against Ravane, I think it is. And he's, again, a ladder hero, super strong, and is someone I run into quite a lot. So Cistern up first. You want to basically just open the same way as before with the 7-3 split. So I just send one villager to build the cistern. I'm already going towards the gold vein here, so putting the mining camp down. And then building a house. So 7, and then 3 in gold. We're going to be using the 5 villagers to age up again, although in this game it's a little bit more clean than the one that I showed you before. So that's the thing with using these ladder games, or tournament games for that matter. For these types of videos is you make mistakes. It's not a perfect situation, but I know a lot of you are actually asking for it. So I'm just trying to see if I can get those for these videos, although it's a little bit difficult sometimes. I'm doing my best to try to bring you the highest quality. All right. So villagers now, we have 3 in gold. Now we're just doing the same thing that we did before in the build order before. Now we're going to go back on food, but instead of going up to 9 on wood when we're aging up, we're just going to go up to 6 and then back to food. So there's a little bit of difference there, but it also gives you time to actually think about what do you want to do for the game. The javelin and spear comp is super strong in general. I would probably play that in this matchup as well because I think it's more safe. But Gulp has such a strong, what we say, power spike. That power spike can just end your games so damn quickly, and it could be a surprise to your opponent if they do not see it coming. All right, so we have 4 in food, we have 3 in gold. Now we're going to age up with Grand Winery here at 208, and we don't have any downtime this time. This is a little bit more clean. Just put the Grand Winery down. As you can see, the berries aren't exactly covered by the system, but doesn't matter too much because we're going to build a second system in a moment. Scout is just going to scout aggressively, take a look at the enemy's base. Not really much to see here. You want to maybe watch out for Dark Age rushes. It's probably the thing that you're most susceptible to as Byzantines, is getting your berries towered. If you do get your berries towered with this build here, try to get an archer range out so that you can counter the spears and then go on another berry patch. Don't be afraid to move out in the map. You don't need to use your Grand Winery. And don't cancel your Grand Winery if you see it coming. So you have good utility to play the game without the Grand Winery. Gives you a good amount of extra oil, but it's not a game loss if you don't have access to the berries underneath. All right, so now we have scattered our berry patches. We have that one in the top. We have one here in the front. If we go for the front one, building a tower here makes a lot of sense. If we're going to go for the top one here, maybe make a wall instead. It's going to cost you the same resources, but give you more safety. All right, so now we're going to build our second cistern. We're queuing up wheelbarrow. No double broadaxe because we're not going to gather as much wood this time. We're just going to go for a tower and a mercenary house. Mercenary house for the Keshiks. We're going to build at about 445 here. And then we're going to build a tower on gold after. I'm going to show you a little bit of how to find that timing for the Gulp, because a lot of the times people will rush into the Gulp and then they'll have no food. So something that's really important to remember is if you do go for the Gulp build, you're going to be gathering berries for oil, and those are going to give you the Keshiks, but the moment you stop gathering berries, you're also going to stop getting Keshiks. So if you're pushed off oil and you don't go to another berry patch, you're not going to have that unit to defend you or to attack and sort of distract your opponent. So just keep that in mind, that if you are pushed off berries, that you are going to play a little bit of a different game. You can still go for Gulp and Cataphracts, but it's not going to have the same impact because you won't have Keshiks to upgrade immediately upon entering Castle Age. So that is a crucial part of getting that timing for the Gulp. You can also go for longbows. Some people like to go for longbows with this build because then you have the natural counter. But I think going Dulams and Springles is a very good argument for playing Keshiks. Because in the current meta, that type of siege gameplay, if you are comfortable with it, is super strong. Alright. We've remacroed now. We're making Keshiks. We have gotten our first batch in queue. We are going to be building a tower in a moment here. So we can say we've left 2 on wood, and then we took the other wood builds and put on gold. So about 7 on gold. What's going to happen in this game is that we're going to get raided. And so the timing is not going to be perfect. Again, real games. So I'm going to show you how I deal with that. Basically, we're going to wait for our Keshiks here. We have access to the Acrotoid defense, giving us extra damage to cavalry especially. But really good for defending against these types of raids here, as you will do a lot of damage to the units. Then you can take your Keshiks, and you can then defend your gold vein. So this is the way you would defend this. A lot of the times, if you're up against something like a longbow rush, which is kind of rare nowadays, most people are doing pro scouts, this is not going to be the way forward, and you would have to completely rethink the way that you play this, because you cannot play into Council Hall with such a greedy build like this, because you will just lose access to gold and lose access to Cataphracts in the Castle Age, or potentially even Castle Age itself. Alright, second batch Keshiks is already halfway through, so you can see we are getting a lot of oil, and again, these are just super strong units for raiding. They aren't as strong as knights, but they do heal, and so they are formidable in that sense. Now we're getting ready on the back line here, and so I do make a little bit of mistake of just sort of pulling all my vills to the berries. It's going to delay me. I'm going to show you why that is, and so you don't have to do the same mistake. You can see we're kind of close to getting Castle Age, and if we didn't get raided, we would have been fine. If I took half of these vills and put them on sheep, then I would be gathering food at the same time, and the other ones could move on and get more Keshiks. But I'm just quite focused on getting these Keshiks out because they're super good at dealing with these units that my opponent is making, which is why I'm focusing on the berries. It's also easier to defend if you have more villagers out here against raids and such, because you can pop the Acrotoid and then get even more defenses. So again, just use your Keshiks defensively. If you want to micro your vills and stuff, then watch out you don't idle out too much. Here, these are the vills I should have put onto the sheep initially. Keshiks are now taking some good fights. We're doing some little bit idle time here because we're microing, but now we're back on sheep. Alright, so we have 6 Keshiks out now, and we're going to the next stage. So even with all this idle time here, we did manage to get a pretty good timing. Our opponent has invested a little bit more into the feudal age, and that's good for us, right? Because that makes our units upgraded even more potent for dealing with them. So use the system of the first hill, build an aqueduct afterwards because it's a system, so you get your extra gather rate, and then activate the pilgrim flask inside. What you're gathering for now is, of course, a house. We are upgrading a tower as well, and then we're going to get a stable. It's very important you get a stable so you can start making cataphracts immediately. We have our leftover sheep that we're going to go on now that we've been pushed off of the second batch of berries. So we're just going to go ahead and gather the food there because we just need food for the cataphracts. We already got our Keshiks and we kept them all alive, so we can just upgrade those. We've also managed to bang a little bit of extra gold, which is not too big of a deal because we can use that gold immediately to upgrade. We can also get a monk out and start taking relics if we want to do that. But I think Gulp is one of those very all-in type of builds, so I wouldn't necessarily prioritize relics unless you are going for that. The thing is, you often lose a little bit of that potency by going for monks as well. There's a different type of game that you're playing. Here we're going for timing. Opponent is in the feudal age, we are in the castle age, and so we can get a lot out of just going for a lot of these cavalry units and healing them up using the pilgrim flask. So you can pop that off, automatic pilgrim flask. Use these units to then attack your opponent. We've got our upgrades through. We are making cataphracts. We've also made a couple of monks here. Our opponent is soon going to be castle age as well. And the thing is with Ayubids is they pop the healers pretty much automatically here. Instantly, I should say. And so you will have a hard time sort of competing with that. Anyways, I want to show you this. So this is a fight that I would say, if these Keshiks weren't upgraded, you would probably have a hard time keeping at least half of them alive, I would say. But here what's going to happen is Gulp is going to come through. Not only are we healing per attack, but we're also going to end up getting a lot of extra HP from that automatic pilgrim flask that we toggled before. So we're actually not going to really lose any Keshiks here. So this fight goes a lot better than our opponent might have expected. We do lose our scout, but again, this fight is a big victory for us. Now we have our cataphract coming through, and that also just does so much damage. Trying to take some more relics here. Get caught just before. And now what we're doing is we're going to try to push our opponent. The thing I would advise the most here is try not to over-focus killing villagers. It's good if you do, but if your opponent manages to build a lot of spears and crossbows, you're going to have a harder time actually winning the game. So if that happens, get on top of your opponent, kill their crossbows, kill their spears, kill their anti-cavalry, and then with that, you can start idling out their economy. Here, we don't really have any of our military upgrades yet. We do want to get a blacksmith now. And then with that blacksmith, we want to try to get +1 and +2 ranged armor, which will allow us to stand under the TC. We are taking quite a lot of damage from the TC right now because we don't have any ranged armor. All right, so now we killed a bunch of crossbows, a couple of spears as well, and the camel lancers. Opponent's making more crossbows up here, putting them to the TC, which is smart. So what you want to do is every time a crossbow pops out, every time a spear pops out, kill it immediately so they don't end up building a force. The quicker you kill them, the faster it is for you to get control and just stand under the enemy's base, idling out their economy. Of course, here there's only 5 villagers inside the TC, so get out there, find your opponent's army. Here we can see our opponent went to the berries on the north here with his gold vills, and down here as well. So we do find the berries down here, which is good for us. Missed the berries actually, so a little bit of a mistake there. But again, we can see that he gathered from it, so he's in this area. And so we send our cataphracts out there. We just want to try to keep the enemy's military numbers down. Alright. Take those cataphracts, start taking the sacred sites, so you get that up and going as well. You want to get that extra gold coming in. Now we've queued up a bunch of gulams. We found the enemy villagers. You could say this is probably already over. But if my opponent was able to make a lot of spears and crossbows and didn't throw them initially, you would use these gulams now. Coming out of the mercenary house here. You would use those gulams to build those springles that we were talking about in the beginning of the video here. Right. So again, gulams can build the springles in the field. That's incredibly strong. Now we're getting our ranged armor, we're getting our melee attack, and our teardrop shields, which gives us attack speed and armor on our cataphracts. So we can get a lot of extra armor using that. Again, these fights here are crucial. They are what wins us these games here. So, no need for springles in this game, but you can probably see the scenario where you would need them. Right. GG gets called, and now we're going to take a look at the last build, which is going to be a Pro Scout build. So one of the things we want to talk about when we talk about Byzantines and Pro Scouts is Byzantines is kind of left out of this meta because there are civ that are relying on olive groves and berries to get their mercenary units, and that's the main argument for why you should not play Pro Scouts. You don't get your oil units. But why should you though? Well, something that Pro Scouts give you is safe economy, is safe food, and a high gather rate resource as well, the deers. And why would you play deers if you can't get oil? Well, you could start with your initial berry patch in the feudal age, and then you can use the deers to go into Gulp, right? You have a lot of food coming in, and you need a lot of food to produce cataphracts. And so if you want to do that style, you can still go for Keshiks with oil coming from the berries here, from a mill, and then play cataphracts. But you can also go for longbows and javelins and play Golden Horn Tower. It's up to you how you want to play it. But you're going to do a different opener than the other two builds that we have talked about. So what do you want to do? You want to go 6 on food. So we're just running another one here. We're putting our villager up here, building a system in a mining camp. 6 on food, and then 4 on gold, which is going to give us a little bit of an overgather in the late stage of Dark Age here, which is fine because we are still going to try to go Pro Scout. We're going to get an effective timing anyways, despite being a little bit later to the feudal age. It's only a matter of a few seconds. 6 on food, 4 on gold, and then you rally back to food until you can age up. It's that simple. Put the system in between, so you cover your berries, cover your gold. If not, get your second system to do that, and then just scout the enemy. All right. We got a 4 on gold. We're rallying back to sheep. We don't have to be back on sheep, back with sheep for our TC with our main scout, so we can just go around and scout the enemy as long as we want, the map as much as we want to. So you can see we're floating a little bit of gold here, about 80 gold as we age up, but that's more than fine. We age up with 4 villagers from the food. Then we have 4 on food to produce villagers constantly. We have 4 on gold until we go down to 36.25 in the gold vein. Then we know we have enough gold, so 275 gold gathered. And we're just rallying onto the wood line. So you want to rally wood and basically go up to like 7 on wood, 12 on food, 7 on wood, and then you rally gold if you want to go for a faster castle. If you want to stay in feudal for longer, you can go 12 on food and 11 on wood, and then go in gold. It's really up to you how you want to play it and how your opponent wants to play it. If they want to all in you, you might want to stay in feudal and make units. But it could also be an opportunity to go into Varangian God or Cataphracts with Gulp. Up to you how you want to see the game out. Every game is different. This is just a template. Now we're up with Hippodrome. We have instantly queued up the Pro Scouts here at 4 minutes. So this is a very fast timing compared to many other civs. Then we got Imperial Hippodrome. We're going to be producing scouts out of this one. We're going to go up to 12 on food, 7 on wood, and then we go on gold after. Second system is coming through. Remember to connect them, build another house, and then just gather the straggler trees. Don't go in the lumber camp instead. Just gather the straggler trees so you can get your mercenary house after, or potentially, you know, an archer range if your opponent's making early spears to try to, you know, defend the scouts or the deer for that matter, right? What I like to do here is just have like 3-4 scouts, 1 to scout the enemy. You can also split your scouts in groups of 2. So you have 2 scouts going for an enemy deer pack and 2 going for a safe one. That's another way of ensuring that you're definitely going to get deer. So here, take those 2 scouts, get the safe deer, and then take these ones and just get a little bit greedy on your opponent's deer. It's very annoying in the beginning for your opponent to make units and defend those at the same time, because they're usually also going to try to go pro scouts a little bit delayed as well. So you're usually fine going for a little bit of a early grab there. Then what we can do after, we can go on to longbows and javelins. If we do that, we're going to go Golden Horn Tower for the Castle Age. If we go for Keshiks, it's a good opportunity to play similarly to the build that I showed you before, and then go for Cataphracts and Gulp. So, up to you how you make that decision. It's about how quickly you want the game to end, I guess, and how safe you want to play. Gulp is definitely a little bit more of a risky way to play. Alright, so we got our mercenary house, we're getting our oil a fair bit slower, right? Because we don't have Grand Winery, we didn't go on to the oil as quick. You could put more villages there, but again, we're also getting a lot of food from the deer. So keep that in mind, that when you go on to the oil, you're gathering a little bit slower than the deer. Alright, barracks coming up. It's a good way to counter enemy horsemen or knights. If your opponent's going to go fast castle after doing pro scouts, get a barracks for sure, as you will not usually be up as quick as them, and you don't have any other real counters to something like knights, right? So get Limiting out. They're really good for dealing with enemy knights. If your opponent's making a lot of, let's say, men-at-arms, you can use Keshiks longbows upgraded with +1 ranged attack, or javelins with ranged attack to deal with those early armored units in the Castle Age. And then you want to try to follow up with your own Castle Age quite quickly after. So yeah, that's pretty much how you play it. We have about 5 to 6 on gold here. And that's going to give us the Castle Age. We have about 7 on wood here, producing the units we need. And then we are just going to go castle with Golden Horn Tower here. You can go up with Gulp, again, up to you. So yeah, that's pretty much how you play Pro Scouts. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. You can ask any questions you want to in the comment section below. I'll be there to answer any potential questions around these builds, when to use them. And yeah, if you're interested in coaching, there'll be something about that now. So I wish you guys a great day and good luck on these builds. Have a good one. Ciao.